Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where, wow, Dwayne Johnson really hates Vin Diesel. And he not only hates him, but he seems to hate him just as much as he did when they were filming The Fate of the Furious, when we all first became aware of this feud, because Dwayne Johnson told us about it. Yes, it has not only not faded away, but it even seems to have escalated. Oh, all right. So, as you might recall, this all began during The Fate of the Furious, the 8th installment in the franchise. Dwayne Johnson having joined, I believe, with the 6th installment. And, really helping the franchise out. It was doing pretty good, but it seemed to level up when Dwayne Johnson joined as Hobbs. But then while filming Fate of the Furious, he did that infamous Instagram post where he had some very strong words for one of his co-stars. And everybody guessed that it was Vin Diesel, and he later confirmed that it was Vin Diesel. And they indeed filmed no scenes together while making that movie because they actually couldn't stand to be together. But they were together in his trailer. They had a really heart-to-heart conversation, a showdown, right, that he's mentioned in a recent cover story for Rolling Stone while promoting Rampage. And he said that it became clear that he and Vin Diesel just have very different philosophies when it comes to making movies and professionalism, and that those discussions with Vin Diesel on set gave him a clarity, his words, for the situation. And he also said that he likely won't be doing Fast and Furious 9, and he'll instead be concentrating on his spin-off with Jason Statham. And don't forget that David Leitch, who did the first John Wick, co-directed that, then went solo. Chad Stahelski stayed with the John Wick franchise, but David Leitch has done Atomic Blonde and the upcoming Deadpool 2. And I think he's a good match because he does great fighting sequences, and of course, nobody throws punches quite like Jason Statham and Dwayne Johnson. But when I was first looking at this, this coverage of this Rolling Stone article, I was like, why would Dwayne Johnson bring this up? It seems unprofessional to just lay so hard into this feud. Just walk away, make the spinoff. Don't talk about it, right? Especially while promoting Rampage. Why go there, right? People don't like the hate. But then at the end of the article, he said, I have no ill will towards Vin Diesel, but I'm just glad that we have clarity, right? And then he said, you know what? Take out the ill will part and let's just focus on the clarity. And I was like, wow, that's why I opened this episode the way I did. Dwayne Johnson really hates Vin Diesel and actually publicly said that he bears him ill will. Now, I think that's going to manifest itself in stealing away the Fast and Furious franchise with said spinoff. And I think that he's aggressively going after Vin Diesel and trying, I think, to hurt his reputation. Vin Diesel might even want to consider whether or not this is slander. It's so bad. And I don't know if Vin Diesel wants to get into this conversation because, who knows which way it's going to go with how the public feels. How do you feel? Whose side are you on? Are you on Dwayne Johnson's or Vin Diesel? I don't see why they can't go their separate ways. Tyrese Gibson's obviously very worried about it. You might remember his infamous crying video, which was also kind of sad because he was in a really bad place emotionally because of his custody battle with his daughter, but he also talked about how much he hated The Rock and they had a feud in the video. And so can Dwayne Johnson bring down the Fast and Furious franchise? I'm not sure. It's so reliant on foreign box office these days, largely from China, and Vin Diesel's very popular in China, as evidenced by his other films that do quite well there. So I don't know. I mean, I think that it could continue if maybe they would just stay in their respective corners. I don't know how Universal feels about all this. They're like, guys, stop fighting. Why can't we have 2 Fast and Furious tracks, right? One for you and Jason Statham, Dwayne, and then the other for Vin Diesel and the original cast. And of course, they have to bring someone in to replace Paul Walker. I don't think Scott Eastwood's gonna do it. But I'm very curious what you think about the situation. What do you think about airing it in public? And the only reason I can think for airing it in public is because Dwayne Johnson really wants to actually hurt Vin Diesel's career and hurt his image and take away his franchise, which we all know. While his other movies do well in China, Vin Diesel really only has the Fast and Furious franchise. It's crazy. What could they possibly have gone down between them? I mean, Vin Diesel loves this franchise so much and has taken such care of it, although he did abandon it for a while, remember? I don't know. It's a really tough situation. So that's the first story of the day. Now, the second, it's crazy to see such two big megastars with such a successful franchise having such a vicious battle with so much at stake. All right, so anyway, the second story of the day, talk about vicious battles with a lot at stake. MoviePass, of course, has been fighting quite a bit with the studios and the movie theaters, right? Nobody wants MoviePass to succeed, but except for the people who are subscribers. But MoviePass impressively continues to will itself forward and has been having great headline after great headline the last couple of weeks. So you'll recall that they just closed a deal with Landmark for them to officially not only accept MoviePass, but have for MoviePass people to be able, subscribers to be able to purchase tickets at Landmark through the Landmark channels, official channels. Although it was funny, I checked out Landmark the other day here in New York and I was like, oh, talk about a mixed situation for MoviePass fans. I mean, it's getting a quiet place, the Landmark Theater here on 2 screens, so that's good. But for the most part, they play like really crazy indie films. And it might be like, well, I'm glad you take it, but it's not for like your average moviegoer. So you can see also why Landmark wants this deal, because they're like, hey, will you see this movie for free? And I have to say, some of the movies I was like, I don't think I would even see that for free. But anyway, also, MoviePass has extended an olive branch to AMC, allowing all of their locations to be available for ticket purchase on the app once more. You might recall that they blackballed the biggest theaters in an attempt to try and strong-arm AMC into having discussions with MoviePass to give them a cut of either ticket sales or concession revenue. And AMC said, F you. But MoviePass is like, you know what? Let's try and, everything's awesome. The strong-arm tactic didn't work, so they're going to try the honey approach, right? Although AMC is still not talking to them. However, the reason that MoviePass is in such a good mood is because they just made a major acquisition, MoviePhone. And Verizon's digital, Verizon itself is digital, but Verizon apparently has a company within it called Oath that owns MoviePhone, and now they're a part owner of MoviePass. So that's a good development for MoviePass as well, to have, like, they had a really strong investor before, like Helios or something that no one really heard of. But when you have Verizon behind you, you start to seem more and more legitimate. It's amazing that MoviePass might actually pull this off. So anyway, MoviePhone, of course, was really popular in the 1990s with Mr. MoviePhone, and you bought your tickets by calling in, right? But these days, with everyone using an app, Fandango, I believe, is the primary place for you to buy movie tickets. But MoviePhone still has 6 million monthly users. So that's worth something, right? And they still have, vague brand recognition. So MoviePass thinks this is a great deal, and I think probably for MoviePhone this is a great deal because it makes them a little bit more competitive in the space once more. Because MoviePass, of course, is very current and everyone's talking about it. So now everyone will start talking about MoviePhone, maybe? They said they will not rebrand. It will continue to be called MoviePhone, but of course MoviePass will be able to be used through it. And also, this gives MoviePass access to an already complex built website and app, and the tech team that did that can help them probably with theirs, has the infrastructure. It's instant infrastructure for a company that many people say is too small. You can't get customer service on the phone, but now all of a sudden they have an operation already up and running that they can pull from. And then the other thing they have is a sales department for ad sales on MoviePhone. And that sales department has relationships with the studios already. And of course, MoviePass really wants studios to pay to advertise on MoviePass. Although now that MoviePhone and MoviePass are the same thing, if you buy an ad on MoviePhone, you're actually funding MoviePass as well. Oh, it's so smart, MoviePass. They backdoored it. It's brilliant. And also we'll get the studios used to dealing with, the people at MoviePass, and they won't seem so mysterious and evil anymore, right? They'll be like, oh, I know you MoviePhone guys, and you're also the MoviePass people now. All right, so I'm curious, what do you think? Are you getting more and more maybe thinking of getting a MoviePass? It's a very interesting situation. Even the head of Cinemark said, if you see movies frequently, it was interesting. He said most people see movies only 5 to 6 times a year. Isn't that incredible? I know a lot of us can't even fathom that type of moviegoer, but it's the majority. And he said those people will benefit more from the Cinemark in-house loyalty brand Movie Club. But he said this guy said for people who see movies multiple times a month, then MoviePass probably is for them. And that's pretty kind words for MoviePass, considering the way people have talked about it in the industry over the past couple of months. All right, so for the third story of the day, this is a very interesting business story. So Kevin Feige has been the face of the MCU since its inception. But apparently, as far as the MCU itself and Disney is concerned, there are three people who run that division. Kevin Feige, his co-president, Louis D'Esposito, who we've seen mentioned occasionally. He tweets now and then, and we're like, oh yeah, Louis D'Esposito's a part of this company. But then also Victoria Alonso, who is the executive vice president of physical production. So that's apparently the holy trinity of the MCU. Now, what she does, she comes from a visual effects background. That's how she made her career in Hollywood. Interesting, very inspirational story. She came to Hollywood, wanted to work on movies. That was the avenue that seemed the best chance for her, and she got into it, and she's risen all the way to being apparently one of the three people in charge of the MCU. So that's a good lesson in being open to what career, being open to, where opportunity and chance takes you, and just wanting to work in the movie business in general. But anyway, what she's in charge of is doing the budget, setting up the production, etc., etc. Now, why is she getting attention all of a sudden? Because she's worked for Marvel for quite some time. Well, I believe that after Black Panther, now they're moving on to Captain Marvel, and they want to build a very strong narrative. And a part of that is having a female executive, a high-ranking female executive within Marvel to point to. Now, one of the things that she said that she does is that every time she walks into a meeting, apparently every time, she counts the number of men and women in the room and then makes an announcement as to what the results are. I don't think that's the kind of feminism that's going to help Captain Marvel. And if I were Marvel and Disney PR, I'd be like, stop telling that story, Victoria. And if you could stop actually doing that when you walk into meetings, it would be appreciated. But I think that to be fair, in this, I'll put the link to the interview in the Hollywood Reporter down below. She did also say that it's important to hire the right person for the job, and that she never tries, she never has an agenda when hiring, particularly behind the scenes talent. This movie has to have a female director, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought that was nice. Now, what was also interesting is that she is a lesbian. She's married. She has a child, and that was brought up because not only, as you can see, she's very agenda driven. But also, Atlanta is trying to put in some laws that will discriminate against same-sex couples, apparently in a number of areas. And all of Hollywood's pretty upset about this. But she weighed in on it. She was asked about it. And she said, yes, absolutely. Well, Disney has a lot of LGBT members working for it. And it's interesting that they're like the top queer baiters, but as I've said, as we've discussed recently, maybe that's the best Hollywood can offer right now, because they are still experiencing the most success when you see movies like Love, Simon falter at the box office. But anyway, she said Marvel specifically will pull all of its movies from Atlanta if those laws go through, and that is a lot of money for the state. So we'll see what happens. But that was another interesting aspect to this interview. But it's also bringing in politics to the MCU. I think that Kevin Feige has been such a successful face for the brand for all this time. I think it's risky to change it. And I'm curious to how you feel about the MCU moving into this territory. I mean, she could be a Kathleen Kennedy type figure who's been, very divisive. Although they're still doing great, those movies. But, of course, we have to see how Han Solo in Episode 9 do, right? All right, so those are the three stories of the day. Now, the viewer question, this is a great one. This comes from Marie Katie. And Marie says, question, Grace. With A Quiet Place releasing soon, tomorrow, or tonight actually, in theaters here in the United States, I was wondering, how can a director star in his own movie at the same time? She's talking about John Krasinski. How can he move from one side of the camera to the other side and be able to pull off both jobs correctly? Great question, Marie. All right, so it is difficult to do. And it's not usually recommended for a first-time director, largely because, though, I think, to be fair, the community frowns upon it because they feel that you're directing for the wrong reasons, right? Like it's still a vanity vehicle. Although a lot of actors are able to successfully direct themselves all the time. George Clooney and Kenneth Branagh being two of the best examples. And many times doing great work. Although George Clooney, when he started out, for instance, he did Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which he did not star in. So, maybe it's better to direct a film that you have a supporting role in and then eventually move to the starring situation when you have a little more confidence in your directing abilities. For instance, also, Christopher Nolan advised Joseph Gordon-Levitt from starring in Don John when he directed it. Although I have to say, I thought Don John was pretty darn good, and I don't think the reason that it failed at the box office was because Joseph Gordon-Levitt didn't do a good job directing, because he also starred. I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt just doesn't bring people into the theater, unfortunately. But anyway, and also, it was a little bit of a risque material. It wasn't exactly mainstream stuff. So anyway, though, when you start out, you want to maybe not be in the movie at all, or you want to have a small supporting role just to maybe to keep yourself on screen. And John Krasinski, to some degree, has done this. He's followed this path. He started out directing episodes of The Office, not gym-heavy episodes. And you see actors do that all the time, especially on TV. That's one of the ways they keep engaged. They're like, I'm still making the show, but I'm going to learn a skill. I'm going to learn to direct. And they direct an episode that, again, doesn't focus too heavily on them. And then also, I have to say, without giving too much away about A Quiet Place, John Krasinski does not have a huge role in the movie. I mean, once you see it, you'll be able to see that it's largely Emily Blunt and the kids. So that, I'm sure, helped as well. But the reason that you can actually direct and star at the same time is a little piece of equipment called video playback. Now this is now everybody uses this. It's an industry standard, and it's so you can take there's a video feed of, because you can't look, only the DP actually looks through the camera. So everybody else gathers around a little screen and watches that way. The director, the producer, often, sometimes some talent. Sometimes you got to keep people from looking at it. Everybody wants to see it because you don't want people directing over your shoulder. But if you're acting and directing, you can record, obviously, what this little monitor sees. And after you do your scene, you can run back and you can watch the playback and see how the scene worked out. And if you want another take, or if you do want another take, what you want to correct, etc. And also just, also to give notes in terms of the shot and the angle to everybody else, because you're seeing it for the first time instead of watching it live if you weren't starring. So that's the way that it can be done, both in terms of the equipment that makes it possible, and then also the best route to being a successful director-actor. So thanks for a great question, Marie. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories. Marie's viewer question, do you like director-actors? Do you have a problem with them? Do you think they are able to succeed? I think for the most part they do. And of course, let me know anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.